Picture this: a bustling corporate office in the heart of a major city, where glass walls reflect the glow of the setting sun and the hum of ambition fills the air. It's the headquarters of Horizon Innovations, a tech company on the brink of collapse, with employees in sharp suits rushing through the halls, their faces etched with worry. The company has been hemorrhaging money for months, and whispers of layoffs and bankruptcy are spreading like wildfire. But amidst the chaos, there's one person who seems untouched by the panic, a black man in his late 50s named James, the janitor. He's pushing a cleaning cart through the executive floor, his faded blue uniform stained with years of hard work, his hands calloused from decades of labor. James moves quietly, almost invisibly, mopping the floors and emptying trash bins, while the executives around him bark orders into their phones, barely noticing his presence. To them, he's just the janitor, someone beneath their notice, someone they mock behind his back. They call him Old Jim, snickering about his slow pace and his outdated flip phone, joking that he probably doesn't even know how to use email. But what they don't know, what no one in this building knows, is that James is far more than he seems, and he's about to change everything. It's a particularly tense day at Horizon Innovations. The company's stock has plummeted to an all-time low, and the board of directors is holding an emergency meeting in the glass-walled conference room on the top floor. The executives are gathered around a long mahogany table, their voices raised as they argue over how to save the company. Some suggest mass layoffs, others propose selling off assets, but no one has a real solution. The CEO, a man named Richard Harper, a tall, imposing figure with slicked back hair and a tailored suit, slams his fist on the table, his face red with frustration. "We're out of options," he shouts. "If we don't find a buyer by the end of the week, we're done." The room falls silent, the weight of his words sinking in. But then, one of the executives, a younger man named Mark, smirks and leans back in his chair, pointing toward the glass wall where James is mopping the hallway outside. "Maybe old Jim can save us," Mark says, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "He's been here longer than any of us. Maybe he's got some secret business strategy up his sleeve." The room erupts into laughter, the executives clutching their sides as they mock the idea of a janitor having anything to offer. James pauses for a moment, his mop still in hand, and glances through the glass at the laughing executives. His expression doesn't change, but there's a flicker in his eyes, a quiet, steely determination that no one notices. The mockery doesn't stop there. As James continues his work, he passes by the break room where a group of mid-level managers are sipping coffee and gossiping. One of them, a woman named Lisa, spots him and rolls her eyes. "I don't know why they keep him around," she says loudly, making sure James can hear. "He's so slow, and he's always muttering to himself. I bet he doesn't even know what we do here." Another manager, a man named Greg, chuckles and adds, "Yeah, he's probably just waiting for his paycheck so he can go buy a new mop. That's all he's good for." James keeps his head down, pushing his cart past them, but you can see the way his shoulders tense, the way his grip on the mop handle tightens. He's heard this kind of talk for years, decades even. But today, it feels different. Today, the company he's worked for his entire adult life is on the verge of collapse. And the people who mock him are the same ones who have no idea how much he's done for them. The tension in the office reaches a boiling point later that afternoon when Richard, the CEO, storms out of the conference room, his face a mask of fury. He's just received a call from the company's largest investor, who's pulling out at the last minute, leaving Horizon Innovations with no hope of survival. Richard strides through the hallway, his expensive loafers clicking against the marble floor and nearly collides with James, who's cleaning a spill near the elevator. "Get out of my way, you useless old man," Richard snaps, shoving past James so hard that the older man stumbles, his mop clattering to the floor. The executives trailing behind Richard laugh, one of them muttering, "Nice move, boss. Maybe you should fire him next." James steadies himself, picking up his mop with a quiet dignity. But as he watches Richard disappear into his corner office, there's a look in his eyes that tells you he's had enough. He's been invisible for too long, taken for granted for too long, and now he's ready to show them all just how wrong they've been. You can feel the anger bubbling up inside you as you watch this unfold. James has done nothing to deserve this treatment. He's just doing his job, keeping the office clean while these executives belittle him at every turn. But there's something about the way he carries himself, the quiet strength in his movements, that makes you wonder if there's more to him than meets the eye. As he pushes his cart toward the service elevator, he reaches into his pocket and pulls out a small, worn notebook, flipping it open to a page filled with numbers and notes written in a meticulous hand. He glances at the page, then tucks the notebook away, a faint smile playing on his lips. It's a smile that hints at a secret, a plan, something big that's about to change everything. And as the elevator doors close behind him, you can't help but feel that the executives at Horizon Innovations are in for the shock of their lives. The next morning, the office is a hive of despair. Employees gather in small groups, whispering about the company's impending doom, while the executives prepare for what they believe will be their final board meeting. Richard stands at the head of the conference room, his tie loosened, his voice hoarse as he addresses the board. "We've run out of time," he says, his tone defeated. "The investors are gone, the banks won't lend us a dime, and our stock is worthless. We have no choice but to file for bankruptcy." The room is heavy with silence, the board members staring at the table, their faces pale. But just as Richard is about to call for a vote to dissolve the company, the door to the conference room swings open, and a man in a sharp gray suit steps inside, carrying a briefcase. He's a lawyer, and the look on his face is one of quiet confidence. "I'm here on behalf of a new investor," he announces, his voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "Someone who's willing to buy out the company and save it from bankruptcy. But there are conditions." The executives exchange confused glances, their curiosity piqued. "Who is this investor?" Richard demands, his voice a mix of hope and suspicion. The lawyer sets his briefcase on the table, opens it, and pulls out a stack of documents, placing them in front of Richard. "The investor is someone who's been with this company for over 30 years, the lawyer says, a small smile tugging at his lips. "Someone who's been quietly buying up shares for decades, using every penny of his salary to invest in Horizon Innovations. Someone who now owns 51% of the company, making him the largest shareholder." The room falls silent, the executives staring at the lawyer in disbelief. "Who?" Richard asks again, his voice trembling. The lawyer steps aside and the door opens once more, revealing James, still in his janitor's uniform but standing taller than ever, his eyes blazing with a quiet power. "That would be me," James says, his voice steady and commanding. "James Carter, your new majority shareholder." The room erupts into chaos, the executives shouting over each other, their faces a mix of shock and outrage. Richard's jaw drops, his hands shaking as he flips through the documents, seeing James's name on every share certificate. This can't be real," he stammers, his voice barely above a whisper. "You're just a janitor. How could you possibly—" James cuts him off, his tone calm but firm. "I've been more than a janitor to this company," he says. "I've been here since the beginning, watching, listening, learning. I saw the potential in Horizon Innovations when no one else did, and I invested every dime I earned because I believed in it. And when I saw the company starting to fail, I used my savings to buy up shares, knowing that one day I'd have the power to save it or to let it fall. He pauses, his gaze sweeping over the room, locking eyes with each executive. And after the way you've treated me, I was ready to let it fall, but I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to rebuild. The executives are speechless, their faces pale as the reality of the situation sinks in. James, the man they mocked, the man they called Old Jim, the man they treated like he was nothing, is now the most powerful person in the room. Mark, the executive, who made the snide comment about James saving the company, looks like he's about to faint, his hands gripping the edge of the table. Lisa, the manager who mocked James in the break room, stares at him with wide eyes, her mouth opening and closing as she tries to find words. Richard, the CEO who shoved James in the hallway, is trembling, his face a mask of fear and regret. They all realize, in that moment, that they've made a terrible mistake, one that's about to cost them dearly. James steps forward, his presence commanding the room. I've watched this company spiral because of greed and arrogance, he says, his voice rising with conviction. I've seen you make decisions that put profits over people, that ignored the values this company was built on. But I'm here to change that. As the majority shareholder, I'm taking control of Horizon Innovations, effective immediately. He turns to Richard, his gaze unwavering. You're out, Richard. I want you to clear your office by the end of the day, and anyone else who doesn't share my vision for this company can leave with him. The room is silent, the executives too stunned to speak. Richard tries to protest, his voice weak. You can't do this, he says. I'm the CEO. I built this company. James shakes his head, a faint smile on his lips. No, Richard, I built this company by believing in it when no one else did. And now I'm going to save it. The lawyer steps forward, handing James a set of documents to sign, officially transferring control of the company to him. As James signs the papers, the executives watch in stunned silence, their careers hanging in the balance. Mark, Lisa, and Greg, the ones who mocked James the most, exchange panicked glances, realizing that their jobs, their reputations, are now in the hands of the man they belittled. James finishes signing, then looks up at the room, his expression softening slightly. I'm not here to destroy lives, he says. I'm here to build a better future for this company, for its employees, for the people who actually make it run. But I won't tolerate disrespect or arrogance. If you want to stay, you'll need to prove you're worth keeping. He pauses, letting his words sink in, then turns to leave the room, the lawyer following close behind. As the door closes, the executives erupt into frantic whispers, their fear and regret palpable. They've just lost everything to the man they thought was nothing, and they have no one to blame but themselves. The news of James's takeover spreads through Horizon Innovations like wildfire, and by the next day, it's all over the media. Janitor becomes majority shareholder, saves tech giant from bankruptcy. Employees gather in the break room, watching the news on the TV, their faces a mix of shock and admiration. Many of them knew James. They'd seen him cleaning the floors, fixing broken chairs, even helping them with small tasks when no one else would. But they had no idea he was capable of something like this. Some of the younger employees start calling him Boss Jim, a nickname that spreads through the company with a sense of pride. James, now officially the chairman of Horizon Innovations, moves into the corner office that once belonged to Richard, but he doesn't change much about himself. He still wears his simple clothes, still carries his old flip phone, and still takes the time to talk to every employee, from the interns to the senior managers. He implements new policies focused on fairness and innovation, ensuring that every worker is valued. And within months, the company's stock begins to climb, its reputation restored under his leadership. For Richard and the executives who mocked James, the consequences are severe and long-lasting. Richard, stripped of his title and his pride, tries to start his own consulting firm, but no one will work with him. His reputation is in tatters. And the story of how he mistreated James follows him everywhere. Mark, Lisa, and Greg are all let go after James's review of their performance, their careers in the tech industry effectively over. They move to smaller towns, taking low-paying jobs far from the corporate world, their names synonymous with failure. Lisa, in particular, struggles with the shame of her actions, and years later, she writes James a letter, apologizing for her behavior and thanking him for showing her the importance of humility. James reads the letter, a small smile on his face, and sets it aside. He's already moved on, focused on the future. James's story becomes a legend, not just at Horizon Innovations, but across the business world. He's invited to speak at conferences where he shares his journey from a janitor to a corporate leader, emphasizing the importance of hard work, belief in oneself, and treating others with respect. He uses his wealth to fund scholarships for underprivileged kids, many of whom remind him of himself at their age, and he never forgets where he came from. One evening, as he stands on the balcony of his modest home, not a mansion, but a small house he's lived in for years, he looks out at the city skyline, the lights twinkling in the distance. He thinks about the years he spent cleaning floors, the years he was mocked and ignored, and the moment he stepped into that conference room and took control of his destiny. He smiles, knowing he didn't just save a company, he showed the world that justice always finds a way, that no one can be underestimated forever. And as you reflect on his story, you can't help but ask yourself, what would the world look like if we all treated each other with the respect James deserved? If we saw people for their potential, not their position? James proved that true power comes from within, and that justice, in the end, will always prevail. So as you turn off this video, carry his lesson with you. Never underestimate anyone, because you never know who might be the one to change everything.